Out of practice.
I'm going to call the Town Council of Centerville to order on the July 8th, 2021 meeting. If everybody would please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and then remain standing for a moment of silence for military and public safety personnel, past and present. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, welcome to the meeting. First, we've got the review of minutes from past meetings, June 3rd, 2021. I do not have any adjustments or changes. Anybody else?
Make a motion to adopt the June 3rd, 2021 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No. Next, we've got closed session statements. We're going to start out with July 6, 2021. Closed session announcement regarding Town Council closed session, July 6, 2021. The Town Council met in closed session on Tuesday, July 6, 2021 at 7:01 p.m. at the Centerville Wharf Building, 101 Waterway, Watson Road. Second floor meeting room to discuss personnel in accordance with the Maryland Open Meetings Act. All four members of the Town Council voted to close the session. The authority to close the session is found in Section 3-305 of the General Provisions Article. The Town Council discussed the following topics: personnel, discussed the performance of employees, applications for town manager position, and a candidate for vacancy on a board or commission. Actions, no actions were taken. The following members and staff were present: Timothy E. McCluskey, President; Stephen K. Klein, Vice President; Jeffrey D. Keel and Shelby C. Anania, members; Sharon Van Emberg, Town Attorney; Steve Walls, Town Manager; and Crystal Ebaugh, Human Resources Manager, were present for a portion of the meeting. The meeting adjourned at 9:34 p.m. Next, we have a closed session statement for July 8th, 2021. Town Council met in closed session on Thursday, July 8th, 2021 at 6 o'clock p.m. at the Liberty Building, 107 North Liberty Street, second floor meeting room to discuss personnel in accordance with the Maryland Open Meetings Act. All four members of the Town Council voted to close the session. The authority to close the session is found in Section 3-305 of the General Provisions Article. Town Council discussed the following topics: personnel, employee review and reviewed resumes, actions, approved revision to employee contract. The following members and staff were present: Timothy E. McCluskey, President; Stephen K. Klein, Vice President; Jeffrey D. Keel and Shelby C. Anania, members; and Sharon Van Emberg, a Town Attorney. The meeting adjourned at 7:06 p.m. Next, we're going to move into Citizens Forum. Carolyn, can you read the announcement, please?
Welcome to this meeting of the Centerville Town Council. This is a public meeting and we welcome your participation. By attending, you acknowledge that this session is recorded and aired live on QAC TV 7. During the meeting, we ask that you turn your cell phones off and hold personal conversations outside the meeting room. The scheduled agenda is available on the information table just outside. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person. The Town Council respects and appreciates your desire and right to convey your message freely, and in keeping with the dignity of proceedings, we ask that all views be expressed in a respectful and civil manner. Comments longer than 3 minutes should be submitted in writing. If questions are a part of your comments, we'll refer those to the appropriate individual. Thank you.
Does anybody want to make public comment? Please come forward, identify yourself and where you live, and you've got your 3 minutes. We'll do our best to answer questions if it's easy enough. All right, hearing none, we will move on. We will have another Citizens Forum opportunity at the end of the meeting. Next, we're going to move on to old business, Resolution 07-2021, Comp Time Policy Amendment. Crystal, is this something you want to discuss?
Sure. I have some allergies. I just don't want to cough near people. So the town's current compensatory time policy allows eligible full-time employees the ability to earn comp time at the discretion of their department head or designee, but there's no definition clarifying the exempt or non-exempt employees. So we're requesting approval to amend the current comp time policy to clarify what the town allows as earnable time for exempt and non-exempt employees. And this clarification will maintain the reduction of long-term carryover of the comp time from year to year to a maximum of 100 hours per year by including the changes that I've shown in Exhibit A. So I left everything redlined so that you can see the changes and looking for consideration for approval or motion.
All right, so this will be done via a resolution, and I'm happy to read the top part of it. It's a resolution of the Town Council of Centerville to adopt a compensatory time policy, whereas by Ordinance 01-2011, enacted March 17th, 2011, and effective April 6, 2011, the Town Council adopted the Personnel Manual, rules and regulations governing the operations of a merit system, the Personnel Manual, as a personnel manual for employees of the Town of Centerville. I'll submit the rest for the record, and essentially you're looking for a motion to approve.
So before we get there, your new section 4.2, 4.1, all eligible exempt employees, maximum of 100 hours has been struck. So do exempt employees, can they earn up to 100 hours or over 100 hours, or does the new section 4.5, does that serve as the same functional limit?
No, so the way that it's being written is that the exempt employees can earn comp time, but at the end, or the first pay period in June every year, they're only allowed to get paid out 100 hours, and anything that's over that is forfeited. Non-exempt employees, hourly employees, because they earn overtime for any hours that are worked over 40 hours, for them, they could only earn up to 100 hours, and then anything over that is paid out as overtime in that pay period. So if they've already hit the 100-hour comp time balance, because the way that it was originally written, it made it seem like all employees, anything over 100 hours of comp was going to get forfeited, and you don't want to do that for the hourly employees. So I was trying to clarify it better.
So supervisors and, I'm sorry for being
No, that's okay.
stubborn here. Supervisors and department heads are limited to 100 hours of comp time payout.
Correct. And actually, so are the hourly at that time in June.
Right.
But
with this amendment, we go from that to exempt employees, supervisors and department heads are limited to 100 hours of comp time payout, and non-exempt, so hourly employees get.
they're still only limited to 100 hours comp time payout.
But they get.
But because they are under the Fair Labor Standards Act, they're entitled to overtime of any time worked in a 40, over their 40-hour work week.
Okay.
So therefore, if an employee has already accrued, up to 100 hours of comp, they can't earn any more. So
They have to get.
they have to get paid out their overtime.
And for the exempt, somebody might earn during the course of the year 120, but they may use 40 of it, and they only have 80 left when the payout comes. So
But still being, yeah.
So it's they could earn more than 100, but at the end of the year, end of the fiscal year, they can't be paid more than 100.
It's up to.
Hopefully they've used some of it and it's down under 100. So.
So let me ask about a conflict here, right? Can you see a scenario where it's getting towards the end of the year, we've got a department head or somebody who's not getting it in their regular paychecks, they've got 200 hours, and they're going to lose that 100, right? And they say, okay, I'm going to take the next 2.5 weeks off, but you're essential and we need you, you can't take that time off, right? I mean, that's the way it goes. I mean, I think, hopefully the supervisor will manage that.
I've never seen that happen
Okay,
in my career,
perfect.
but I'm not saying that possibility could exist, right?
And currently, the policy is anyway that the department heads are supposed to be at least keeping track of
Right.
the amount of overtime or comp time that an employee is working.
Yep. Okay, good. Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 7-2021 as presented.
Second?
we have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 07-2021 Comp Time Policy Amendment. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next, we've got memorandum for Lawyers Row lights.
Essentially, this is just a follow-up to include in the records. The council, because of a time-sensitive issue, it was going to take a couple months or more for these lights to come in. the council, because you have your abbreviated summer schedule, we went ahead and council gave your initial approval, through an email, and we just wanted to go ahead and let you officially put it in the records. If you want to take another vote, in the open session, you can do that too, but essentially you've already took that action.
Okay, I mean, I'm happy to just read the bottom where it says the town council responded
Yep.
via email with their concurrence to purchase 3 streetlights in the amount of $13,027.20. And that could be for the record. You good with that, Sharon? You good with that? Okay. Next, we've got waiver of Chapter 7, Article 1, Section 72A, Drink Maryland, Centerville.
Same issue applies here, is that the council, due to the timing, had to go ahead and grant your approval, via email to waive the, to allow consumption of alcohol beverages for the Drink Maryland event.
Okay. So I'll just read the bottom there. The town council responded via email with their concurrence to waive this request. This is to formally announce the decision in open session. All right, next, we've got Mcventures allocation approval.
This is really sort of a long history. This particular project is a 4-lot subdivision. There are existing lots of record. And the developer at the time, back in 2014, did get approval. The allocations were granted so that PWA was approved. But according to the PWA, it says that the allocations are reserved for 2 years. We have gone by the wayside, for a number of years where that property was not developed. And then the property changed hands to a new developer in 2019. And we have another PWA that's on the agenda tonight that reflects the new owner and some of the new provisions. And we just felt that it would be beneficial to have the council approve these 4 allocations because there was a time lapse.
Okay. Was the deposit forfeited, or we're going to kind of give them the grant it through to the next?
We had planned to at least keep the deposit the way it was originally designed.
And I can remember previously we had, when the town went through the recession and there wasn't a lot of building that was going on, we granted kind of a blanket grant to everybody for a couple of extra years. So I think that makes sense. Does anybody want to make a motion or have questions about this?
Is Mcventures a substantially different company than whoever held the?
Before it was a husband and wife that owned the property, and now it's basically two business people.
I mean, this has been 7 years. I would seek the deposit. Different entity, but that's just my opinion.
Anybody else have any opinions on that?
I agree with Steve. I think we should get the deposit.
Deposit should be forfeited. Do you remember specifically what the previous PWA said? Was it that the deposit would be forfeited, or that there'd be an administrative amount that would be given back to them?
That's usually the standard language.
It does say the deposit will be.
I think it does say that you do reserve the right to forfeit it.
I mean, if it had been a couple years, I would say sure. If it was the same people, I would say sure. This has been a long time.
Yep.
It's different people.
I'm in agreement with you there. I mean, I think that, I can see that. It's been a long time, and those were reserved, and we couldn't sell them to anybody else at the time, and,
So we
We
can
can certainly sell them now.
we can change that when we get to the public works agreement.
Property
That-
transferred.
Right? That's when we would
Yeah, I
actually
mean,
do
that
it.
would be something.
So essentially, we had reserved them before. That has lapsed. This motion particularly is to just reserve them again.
Just to, yes.
And then
reserve
we
them.
can change it in the
Right.
Public Works Agreement, we can change that paragraph. All right, so we can do that at that point.
All right, I move to approve 4 allocations for the Mcventures LLC subdivision located at the end of Glendale Avenue and Windsor Avenue.
Okay, there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Mcventures for 4 allocations. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next, we've got ordinance 08, new business 08, 2021. I know I saw that earlier. So I'll read the beginning of that, and I don't know who's going to want to discuss this. So ordinance number 08, 2021, an ordinance for the purpose of authorizing the conveyance by way of a quitclaim deed of a parcel of property identified as existing 12-foot alley to be converted to a 12-foot access and utility easement containing 1,632 square feet and the acceptance of 324 square foot area, to be transferred from Mcventures to the town of Centerville, which is part of parcel 957 on Queen Anne's County Tax Map 44B, and all matters related thereto.
So what it is, in between this 4-lot subdivision, there's 2 lots on one side of this 12-foot alleyway and easement, and there's 2 lots on the other side. 2 lots will eventually front Glendale when it's extended down toward to the trail, and the other 2 lots front on the Windsor Avenue side. So the town had worked it out with a developer in principle to go ahead and turn that land that's now, that alleyway that's sort of under town ownership, turn that over to them so it would be part of those lots. And in turn, there's some square footage of land that's down adjacent to the trail that they are going to give to the town. But we have to go through the legal process of actually doing the conveyance.
And my understanding is that it actually, the paved trail is on that, right? I mean, or it's right near there.
It's right next, next to it.
Okay. All right, so we're going to,
Is it a 1-to-1? Or are we getting more back than we're giving them?
I think it's, I can't remember the actual square footage between the 2, but I didn't.
1,600 is the one that we're giving, and
Okay,
then
yeah.
324 is the one we're getting.
So we're getting far less.
Right. Yeah. But the way the town staff was looking at it is, it's a dead-end alley that we really would like to come back at some point and propose to abandon all the alleys in this town, because, we periodically will have somebody ask the town if, can you come down here and cut this tree down that's in that alley, and, we don't maintain those alleys.
and it still will be a public, there will be a
It'd be
access and utility easement.
It'll be an
Yeah.
easement, so we have the ability to go in there to deal with any of the utilities.
Yeah, okay.
I think in the future it would be, I know this is a first reading, it would be nice to have maps with these things.
Yeah, I agree. We definitely want to have the plat.
Even like a Google Earth would be helpful for me.
You can know where it's
All
at.
right, so let's get that for the second reading, and so this has got to be advertised, and there's going to be a second reading, there's going to be a public hearing as well, so it'll
Not
take us.
required to have one, but you can if you want a public hearing.
Okay,
There is required to be an
Yeah,
advertisement.
I don't know that we've had the public
land.
hearings for the land conveyances.
right, yeah, we really only do them when they're required specifically. Okay, well, let's get the plats, and then I'm sure, it'd be nice to have the plat put on there as well, but we'll have this for the next second hearing, all right?
I'll just offer my support for addressing the broader alley issue across town. Centerville Heights certainly has a bunch of them, and they are generally in a state of disrepair or fiat ownership. People put their sheds and trees and stuff in them, so it'd be nice to maybe, figure out a way to resolve that.
We've been working on it a little bit at a time.
Yep, sure.
So is that, what, they going to turn it over to the property owners, or?
That's the goal.
Okay.
And then it becomes taxable property.
I look forward to my assessment.
Yeah.
All right, moving on, we've got ordinance 09, 2021, accessory structures. I'm going to let you read this one.
Sure. An ordinance of the Town Council Centerville, ordinance number 09-2021, an ordinance of the Town Council of Centerville to amend the town zoning ordinance codified as Chapter 170 of the Town Code to relate the maximum allowable size of accessory structures to the size of the required rear yard, to increase the required minimum rear and side yard setbacks for accessory buildings that exceed 12 feet in height, to establish a vegetative buffer requirement for buildings 15 feet and taller, and to add definitions of the several terms in order to administer and enforce the town's zoning ordinance more effectively. This was crafted, I think I sort of started this process with a 6-month moratorium on accessory buildings more than 400 square feet, because we've got some of these in the communities that are really changing the residential feel of our neighborhoods, some of these large metal structures. So this is the Planning Commission's a very good attempt, I think, with certainly some assistance from staff, good assistance from staff, to make sure that these accessory buildings fit the sort of envelope of the piece of property in a way that makes sense for where they are situated in the neighborhood. So they are not taking up an enormous percentage of the rear yard or right on the property line if they're these larger buildings. So I commend this work.
Planning Commission did spend a considerable amount of time on that, and so the process will be that it actually technically has been introduced. It will now go back to them for their recommendation, and then it will come back to us for a public hearing. I made several comments during the Planning Commission meeting when they were looking at that. I still am concerned about how it's got to get pushed back every foot above 12 feet. It's got to get pushed back 2 feet inward up to a maximum of 20 feet. I think that might be a little excessive. We're also requiring anything over 15 feet. They've got to have buffer planning, which I think is a great idea. I've been driving around looking at some of these that have been put in, and there's no doubt there are some that stick out, and it's, ugly for the beholder. But there's also several that if you're on you got 4 corners in your backyard, and there are 3 of these already there. They're already in the backyard where they're supposed to be. So the only concern that I would have is that in theory, I think it's a good thing, but I think in practice we may be pushing it too far. So those are the only comments I would make. I would say like 2 feet, every foot that it goes up should go back 2 feet. I just think that in practice, that's too much. So, I would say, I'm okay with maybe 1 for 1 up to less than 20 feet, or maybe, every foot up it goes a half a foot back, or just pick a maximum, right? It's got to get pushed back to a maximum of 10 feet, something like that.
10 and 10.
I just think it's too much.
It is. Way too much.
I don't know if anybody else has any comments on how they would, like to modify this.
Not tonight.
Well, I will tell you that if we give it to the Planning Commission and they come back and they provide their recommendation on this, and then if we change it substantially, which I believe if you change the numbers, that's going to be substantial, it has to go all over again. And if we do that, it's fine, but based on our meeting schedule already, we're already running the risk of getting this thing passed before the moratorium runs out, right? And so we could risk that, and it could go into October where there would be a small window, but I just want everyone to understand that. And I will say that the Planning Commission is not meeting in July, so we may actually I don't know if we have an opportunity based on when our next meeting is to meet before this, and we don't. So it's like the day before?
No, because they're meeting on August 4th.
But is that a regular scheduled meeting? That's going to be their regular meeting.
They're going to meet again maybe
Yeah.
in 2 weeks after that, but
they're going to see this at their meeting on August 4th.
Yeah, it won't come back to the council before the 2 meetings of the Planning Commission.
Okay.
So what section are you referencing specifically?
Specifically, section B1A. The minimum required setback for the side and rear yard lot lines shall be increased by an additional 2 feet for every 1 foot of building height above 12 feet to a maximum of 20 feet. So you've got right now it's 3 feet, right? Minimum. That's the absolute minimum. So if you have a building that is now 14 feet, so it's 2 foot more, it's got to go from 3 foot to 7 foot, right?
And for everybody that's not been attending the Planning Commission, the 12 feet, if you use that as a reference point, that's essentially the wall. It doesn't count, it's not counting, that's not the peak.
Okay.
Basically the wall height before the roof line, no matter
Right.
how much pitch it is to the roof line, that's what the height is based off of.
Okay,
That's how other heights in the zoning ordinance are measured.
makes sense.
Isn't it halfway between the roof?
I think it's, yeah, it's not exactly right that.
So if you have the roof, if you have the ceiling line, and then you have another, if you have another 6-foot roof, that's adding 3 foot on top of that.
12-foot walls and total is, I think, is 15 feet to the peak of the roof.
What's that?
I mean, I just want to say, you know, a 12-foot building, 12-foot walls seems like a reasonable sized building for a residential neighborhood. You get sort of much above that, I guess I'm of the feeling that in a town like Centerville, with the neighborhoods it has, you know, some of these, I mean, I'm not concerned about if the regulation to build a metal pole barn with 15-foot walls is onerous, good. I mean, that is an enormous building.
Yeah.
15 feet high, not including the peak. That is a big building.
Yes.
For a residential town setting. So, you know, while I guess I'm willing to discuss it, at some point, I mean, you know, 20 feet functionally, I don't even know what that looks like. Yeah,
I mean, I'm happy to go take some photos of existing ones that you could look at and be like, wow, that doesn't stick out at all. But there's also ones that absolutely do.
And I think part of it, in taking into consideration larger size lots, you know,
Yeah.
that you can't have something that's fitting all the different size lots. Smaller lots, yeah, 15 feet may be a large monstrosity appearing, but, you know, for bigger lots, it's you know, more easily absorbed into the backyard.
Right.
I mean, I'd rather see it be, instead of a maximum of 20, maybe a maximum of 15. So readjust these numbers so that, you know, above 20 equals 15 and then figure it backwards from there.
So you're concerned about a 14-foot tall building being 7 feet from the side and rear setback?
I think that's excessive. I don't think a 14-foot tall building is necessarily that. I think there are many instances here in town where you would have a 14-foot building that, if you had a garage with a loft above it, you're already at 14 feet. And, you know, a detached garage is absolutely that way. And if you were to look at a detached garage, the chances are most of those are going to be in a long lot. They're going to be right at the lot line, or 3 feet or 4 feet from the lot line. There are a lot of those examples here in town.
I mean, I am trying, my concern here is that, to be very specific, there are lots in Centerville Heights and other neighborhoods that do not, by the definition of our zoning rules, have a backyard, that have been permitted to build large buildings right on the property line. So, and they don't have, I mean, technically speaking, the house that I'm talking about doesn't have a rear lot line, or they don't have a rear yard, because they have roads on 3 sides of the house. I mean, I'm.
So if that was missed because of a mistake, the same thing could theoretically be missed because of this mistake, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel terribly strongly about this. I mean, I like the other things that are in this.
I do too. I mean, you know, one of the things I really like is where they talk about having to put in buffers, evergreen buffers, right? So if we were to say, you know, let's say we did it, the setback, the side setback is a maximum of 20, and instead of it being a 15-foot where it triggers a buffer, maybe it's 10 where it triggers a buffer. You know, I mean, there's a compromise, I think, that, or maybe 12, right? If it's over 12, you got to have a buffer, and the maximum amount is going to be 15 feet, no matter how big you build it.
Let's strike here the permit application for any building 15 feet, replace 15 with 12 for the evergreen buffer.
I made you do it.
I made you do it at 12, right?
Yep, I did it.
All right, so that's number 3. And then can we modify it from the side going from 3 to 20, maybe make it 3 to 15 as a maximum, and then they can figure out how to adjust that?
Sure. And I want to emphasize for the record here that, Section 3, subsection B, starting with accessory buildings, so they cannot exceed 30% of the area of the required rear yard.
Right.
So I think that gets at my concern and town managers' issues of, on a larger lot, sure.
Right.
In sort of heart of town lots, no, they don't
And,
fit.
the presentation that Chris put together was great. I mean, he showed what the technically allowable amount is, what your backyard is, and then when he said it's 30%, it really cut it down. So even though you may be, it may look like you're allowed a 1,000-foot building, you really are only allowed a 500-foot building or a 400-foot building. All right, so Sharon, can you make these changes to make the maximum of 20 feet, make that into 15, and then adjust the setback that way? Does that make sense?
So it'll go from 3 to 15
Correct.
for the setback, but it'll still go from 12 to 20 for the
Yep.
height. And then the other change is the evergreen thing kicks in at 12 feet.
Right.
So a 12-foot tall building, we're still requiring a 3-foot setback?
Well, it's gonna, the scale is gonna change a little bit, right? So instead of it being, a 12-foot is gonna require 3 feet. Yeah.
3 feet from the back?
3 feet from the side and rear.
But I think if you're going to require the landscape buffer at the 12, then I think you should go at least 4 or 5 feet, because 3 feet doesn't give you much room for a buffer. Most of the vegetation that we looked at, these evergreens that Chris was recommending, typically they grow 3 or 4 feet wide.
Mine are 5, but.
So if you're saying 3 feet, and it's typically a 4-foot wide tree, it's smacking up against the building.
Why can't we do
All right, so start it at 5?
12 feet
I think
to
5.
15 feet is 5.
Yeah.
15 to 20 feet is some other number rather than this graduated scale.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
graduated, right?
10,
Just some set amounts.
10.
So 12 to
That's what Sharon likes.
12 to 15
Set
is
amounts.
12 to 15 is 5.
Over 15 should be 10.
Over 15 is 10.
Yep.
Does that work?
And then we're gonna leave it at 10.
10. Over 15 is 10.
How's that? Okay. So under 12 is 3, 12 to 15 is 5, 16 and up is 10.
You got it.
And then it's
And 12 requires a landscape
12
buffer.
requires landscape buffer. Okay, all right.
All right.
That's how government gets done. Let me tell you, the planning commission spent hours on this.
Yeah.
All right, ordinance 10-2021, election provisions. Steve, will you read this, Klein?
I will, as ordinance number 10, 2021, an ordinance for the purpose of providing for election terms not otherwise provided for in the charter for the town of Centerville and all matters related thereto. For folks who may be unaware, Councilmember Robert Hardy has submitted his letter of resignation to the council effective July 6, 2021, which creates the need for us to fill the seat by election.
Sharon, will you give us some details on the authority of the council to do this and what your recommendation was?
Sure. So his resignation creates a vacancy, and since the remaining term is 2 years, over 2 years, it requires an election to determine that position, and the charter provides that that election should be filled at the general election. So that general election is October 4th, 2021. There is an additional seat up at that time, and the charter doesn't address how you determine if which two candidates will get which seat. So this ordinance will address that issue and provide that the highest person that gets the highest number of votes will get the 3-year term, and the person who gets the second highest number of votes will get the 2-year term that's remaining on Mr. Hardy's.
Okay, very good. So that's just the introduction, first reading. We'll have that back to us for approval in August, and then there will be enough time between then and the passage for it to be effective.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Next, we've got item D is Public Works Agreement, Mcventures. This is the one where we had discussed before where we might want to modify it based on what was given to us. I think that's section 1-31. So Sharon, I don't know what your recommendation is on this, if we should just remove 131 or if that should be modified.
Yeah, it would just have to be changed that, that there's no deposit.
Okay.
Right.
It's been applied.
Okay.
So okay.
So basically what it would say is the developer has not paid any non-refundable deposit for a total of up to 4 allocations. And then the rest of it talks about water and sewer allocations are reserved for a period of 2 years. I think that it should actually change to say that upon execution of this agreement, they need to pay that 20%.
Or should we be mentioning here that we have waived the previously paid deposit?
Well, the previous Public Works agreement says that if it's not purchased within 2 years, they lose it, right?
Okay,
The previous one says that.
Not purchased, I think it's if it's just not used.
Right. Yep.
So I would think that first line would say the developer shall pay a 20% non-refundable deposit of.
Okay.
Okay.
And typically it's paid at building permit, when they pay their allocation. But you could do it execution of the agreement if you want.
I mean, I think typically in the past, I don't know when we've done it in the past for Public Works.
I mean, usually the deposit's required at execution. The balance is due
Yeah,
at building permit.
so let's have them do the deposit at execution.
Right.
Okay. All right, are we all good with that change? All right, do we want to make a motion to approve?
And for this, as well as the other two, if there could be a little bit of leeway for, say, the town manager and I to make, if they come back with a tweak to the wording so that we could still make those tweaks without coming back to you.
Right.
So this one in the motion that you have before you won't say approve as presented because you've amended it. You'd have to put the amendment in there before you get to the part about what Sharon just asked.
Okay. All right, does somebody want to make that motion?
Be as
I make a
amended.
motion to approve the Public Works Agreement for Mcventures LLC as amended.
Do you want to add the rest of the condition in there?
You could add the condition in there.
Condition being that the developer shall pay.
It would be this.
I'll just start from the top. I make a motion to approve the amended Public Works Agreement for Mcventures LLC as amended, with the condition to authorize the town attorney and town manager to make non-substantive revisions as needed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next, we've got Public Works Agreement, YMCA. I didn't see any issues on this. I'm happy that we've got them building the road. And Jeff and I were able to attend the groundbreaking the other day, and it was a great event. It was very hot.
Probably
Inside too.
Yeah. Probably the one unique thing about this particular Public Works Agreement is that the actual allocations that are in reserve to the county. And the county is essentially a party to this agreement, saying that they're going to grant those 4 allocations of what they have in reserve up to the year 2025 to the YMCA.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the Public Works Agreement for the Young Men's Christian Association of the Chesapeake Incorporated and the County Commissioners of Queen Anne's County as presented, with the condition to authorize the town attorney and town manager to make non-substantive revisions as needed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the Public Works Agreement for the YMCA. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next, we have the Public Works Agreement for Green Thumb Industries, GTI. Anybody want to discuss this one?
It's just a matter that they, the work that they're doing to combine the existing warehouse building. I think they're planning to go to settlement next week, so they're going to combine the Lot I, which is the existing warehouse property that's already been developed and it's a processing facility and a partly growing facility, and Lot K, which is right behind it. It's all going to be one ownership, and they'll be putting a part of the growing operation out in Lot K. So that's what this agreement is about, and the council had already approved the sewer allocation. So what you see itemized, it was set up to have them pay, X number of dollars over the course of this year.
Okay.
So I think it's supposed to be finished being paid by the end of this calendar year.
We have a motion to
Make a motion to approve the Public Works Agreement for 152 Comet Drive LLC as presented, with the condition to authorize the town attorney and town manager to make non-substantive revisions as needed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the Public Works Agreement for GTI. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next, Steve, we've got an annual drinking water quality report. Is that something you want to talk about, or Kip, do you want to come
I
up?
think Kip was planning to just give you some follow-up information on the report that was required to go out by the state.
Okay. Yes, excuse me. Our annual consumer confidence report was finished and submitted on time to MDE with a certification letter that it was delivered as per MDE guidelines and mandates. This year's CCR, Consumer Confidence Report, was actually prepared by MDE and a circuit rider from Maryland Rural Water. Most of the time it's done either by me or with help from the circuit rider from Maryland Rural Water. This year, because of the way things have been this past year with COVID and everything, a lot of folks from MDE worked from home and stuff. They kind of go through things with a fine-tooth comb to make sure they didn't miss anything. With that being said, the date on the top says April. I didn't actually get it till the middle of June, first part of June. Just to cover a few things, there's been some, I guess, confusion and some angst about some of the information in here. Again, like I said, this stuff is all mandated by MDE. The language in it, the information that's in it, the way it's presented. We cannot change that by any means or anything. There's nothing that can be added to it or anything. So that I want to try and help ease some of the angst that the folks have. The most of what I've heard was dealing with the three violations that are on the third page of the report. The first violation is for nitrate measured in nitrogen, part of the mandatory routine sampling and reporting. We're required to collect a sample once a year. It's normally collected in December. The report has to be mailed in before the end of December and sent in. Sorry, but staff inadvertently missed a sample date. Missing a sample date, you can't send a report by the end of the month. They followed up with a sample in January once everybody realized that it wasn't sampled the correct time to be reported in time. It's still a violation because it wasn't sampled in the 2020 year. It was January of 2021, which is only, a matter of weeks apart, but it's still a violation. It doesn't make any difference. It did pass. We were well within the maximum contaminant guidelines for the nitrate. There was no issue as far as unhealthy water. It just can't be presented that way because it wasn't sampled in that year in the time frame.
We are only testing for nitrogen once a year.
Nitrate in drinking water, yes. That there is a schedule of mandatory drinking water sampling schedule that's presented by MDE. years before, it used to be sent out every April or May because you used information off of that to generate this CCR from. However, in the past 10 years, with changes in MDE, people retiring, staffing issues, whatever it be, those didn't get sent out to all the water systems like they used to be. There was anybody that's been on MDE's website understands that it's a bear to navigate. These things were only placed on the website, I'm going to say, in the past 3 years for the operators to go on. In other words, before that, the only way to know what your routine sampling schedule is was by talking to your inspector. What's coming up for this year? When do we need to do it? That kind of thing. If you missed it and the report didn't go in, MD would send you a follow-up letter and say, advising you that was the sample collected and the report just not made in time, those kind of things, and you could straighten it out. However, with COVID, they were all working from home. For whatever reason, they didn't even get posted. So everybody's trying to go from memory or from their inspector reaching out to them. And of course, we didn't have much of that during COVID. So that's kind of where all three of these violations tend to fall with this.
Do you know what the MCL for nitrogen is off the top of your head?
I will tell you right now, 3 years ago, I could have spit it out. My brain's got a few more years on it, and I can't do it
But
anymore.
we are well below it.
Off the top of my head, I can't remember.
But we're well below it.
We're below it. Yes, it's safe. We're below it. We've never approached the high level for it. There is.
I mean, it seems like in a farming community, we would be somewhat susceptible to.
It's more if we were not in what's considered a confined aquifer, it's not under the influence of surface water.
Okay.
If we were in that other aquifer, the unconfined aquifer, that's where it's a problem.
Sure. Okay. I appreciate that.
So, yep. The other two violations, they're actually classified and grouped into drinking water, into disinfectant byproduct contaminants. They're compounds, it's two of them. The haloacetic acid, also referred to as HAA5, and the trihalomethanes, the TTHM. This is a fairly new rule in the game of drinking water, even though it's been probably 10 years in the process. When they come up with new contaminants that they want to sample for and everything, they run it through in different phases. The phase that each water treatment plant is set in is set by what an initial sampling shows that you have as far as those contaminants. And it also looks at the number of people that it serves. We're currently in phase 2. There was some confusion about whether we were moving into phase 3 and it would change the sampling requirements and that kind of thing. These again were missed for the 2020 monitoring year. We can go back and look right on the information on the CCR. Both of those compounds were tested in 2019. The HAA5 was 7.81 parts per billion, far below the maximum contaminant level of 60 parts per billion. The other thing, I'll go on to the trihalomethanes, 9.95, where there's an 80 parts per million maximum contaminant level. The other thing you'll see there, there's no maximum contaminant goal. That goal is the range you want to stay below. There's not one in there because EPA and MDE haven't mandated that goal yet. That goal is set by recorded health effects directly related by that compound. So to tell you that our water is safe, by the record, it's safe. The only thing is, I can't tell you that that something changed or anything in the 2020 year. But these aren't something that change without changes in operation, changes in how long the water sits in our water towers, those kind of things. And, that's what tends to make these levels go up if it's not mixed properly, if stale water, it's just contaminants that wind up leaching out of the chlorine solution, the disinfectant that we use. So, but it's just one of the things that came up on the list. Anyhow, with that being said, they were missed. There's nothing we can do about it. Violation is a violation. It doesn't matter if it's because you spelled a word wrong on your report, or it wasn't collected, or it wasn't sent in time. We'll get back on schedule with it and everything and take it from there.
As far as the public's concerned, the water was safe.
The water quality
still
was
safe.
These compounds, even the nitrates, there's only a certain specific group that it affects. So it's not that it affects the mass population. And as you can read in the report also, it'll tell you you would have to drink like 2 liters of this water a day for 20 to 40 years to have a possibility of a side effect of it. So
I'll just say, appreciate the candor. Obviously, I'm sure you're not going to miss it next year.
no.
And we have confidence in that. I will say, it was in the natural resources field, when you're trying to get the public's attention on things, which is pretty tough to do, nothing is easier to do it on than clean water. It pulls
Yes.
95%. So if we're talking about things the public is going to catch, this is top tier. And I do have just a quick question for you, Kip, if
Sure.
I could. So what was our arsenic level? We're meeting the goals on all of these except for arsenic. And I understand you've got to drink a lot of this stuff over a long period of time, but it sounds bad to not be meeting the goal on arsenic. So I'm curious, what was our arsenic reading before we installed the arsenic filtration?
Before that was installed, the raw water coming out of the ground is like 30 parts per billion. That was prior to the EPA change in the rule, where it went from 50 parts per billion down to 10 parts per billion. And we
were at 30 parts per billion water coming out of the tap?
yes.
When did that stop?
That's pretty common in this area of the county.
Yeah, I
When
can
did
tell
that
you-
stop?
When did it happen?
Stop. When did it stop? When did we install do you remember when this change was made?
Early 2000, I'm going to say 2001 was when the arsenic rule was in the process of changing and going through legislation. It was by 2006. Tim, you might remember better since I wasn't here.
Part of putting in Northbrook was that we had to put those arsenic treatment plants in, and we got a waiver for an extra year because of the delay in the developer putting it in. And I just do want to point out here that the maximum allowed, we met that. The goal is 0, but the reality of when you're in a arsenic heavy water table, the reality of getting to 0 is
Right.
virtually impossible.
I can tell you, and you folks may have heard it through the whole stuff with the discussions we had over Northbrook before, no engineer and water treatment manufacturer will give you a system and guarantee it to treat it to zero. They will guarantee it to treat to a level that is below the maximum contaminant level. So even though the guideline is zero, the maximum contaminant level is at 10. Once you go over the 10, that's when you have to make the notifications and everything. So,
I mean, I think our professional opinion would be, it would be nice if MDE would not put a goal on a piece of paper when you know from an engineering industrial perspective, it's almost impossible to get to the zero. I'm not saying you can't, I guess with,
Unlimited
an
funds.
enormous amount of money, but it's just from a practical standpoint, it's just not practical.
I can.
But it is misleading to the public because you think you're supposed to get to zero.
And a lot of this is driven by the EPA. They drive the clean drinking water standards and everything, and Maryland has to follow, their direction. But Maryland also tends to take it a step further sometimes. I don't want the public to think that I don't care about the drinking water in Centerville. I drink the water. I have a son and daughter-in-law that live on Green Street with 2 small children that drink the water. My wife works in Centerville, so she drinks the water. I have another relative that works and lives in Centerville also. I have a daughter that works at the high school and drinks the water also. So, I take it very seriously. I also take regulations very seriously to the point that I am elected as a director and representative of Maryland to the National Rural Water Association, and I serve on a regulatory committee with National Rural Water. The reason I took that position with them was because I wanted our side heard when EPA comes up with these kind of regulations and stuff, saying, where did you come up with this zero? Because who told you that you can put a zero here when there's no manufacturer or engineer that will tell you they can get it to zero? Those kind of things. And believe me, there's more and more stuff that snowballs because there's more stuff on the horizon that they're looking into now. Stuff that I'm working with them we may not see for another 5 years, but if we can work on the regulations now, it helps mold it to make it easier for systems to deal with in the future.
Well, thank you for for all the effort. I know you take it seriously, and we all appreciate that.
As does your staff as well, so thank you. Anybody have any other questions on the drinking water quality report for 2020? All right, moving on. Next, we have correspondence. We have a couple of things I'm going to read here. As Council Vice President Klein had mentioned, Robert Hardy did resign, and I just felt it would be good that we put, he did provide us a letter as well, and I think it's important to put it into the record. Robert R. Hardy, Jr., letter of resignation. I'm handing in my resignation from the Town Council of the Town of Centerville, as required by the Town of Centerville Code and Charter, because I will no longer be living in the town limits of Centerville, Maryland. I will be moving out of state to Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania on or about 15 August 2021. I'm resigning from my elected position, though, effective 6 July 2021, so that my position on the Town of Centerville Town Council will be an open position. This will enable the Town of Centerville government to place this open position on the ballot in the upcoming election in October 2021. My resignation will also permit citizens of the Town of Centerville to become aware of this situation and thereby have time to file to run for election to the Town of Centerville Town Council. Filing date to be placed on the ballot is on or about the first week in August 2021. Signed, Robert R. Hardy, Jr., 304 Symphony Way, Centerville, Maryland. I think we all wish him well. Next part of correspondence is a request for the town to provide a letter of support in support from the Queen Anne's County Department of Community Services to request an $800,000 grant for the construction of the senior center / YMCA in Centerville, Maryland. They're asking that they have our support. So I would accept the motion to approve this letter of support, and then we can all sign it. Anybody want?
Motion that we send in the letter of support.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, next we have reports of boards and commissions. Parks Advisory Board.
We did not have enough people involved in this month's meetings. We were not able to meet, so nothing to report.
Okay. Council Governments?
No report.
No report.
No meeting.
I'll actually put in for the Maryland Municipal League. There was a conference, the Maryland Municipal League Summer Conference, in person happened. There were not that many people in attendance, but I think there was some good sessions. I know that I attended several. We had several staff members that went, and Jeff, you went as well, and I think you learned a lot as well. I'm going to talk a little bit further at Council Roundtable about some of the things I observed. Planning Commission, there's no updates. Economic Development Ad Hoc Committee, anything?
Yes. What? The Centerville Economic Development Ad Hoc Committee did not meet in June, but they have their next meeting scheduled on Tuesday, July 27th, 6 o'clock p.m. The location will be determined at some point in the hopefully near future, and email invitations will be sent to the Centerville business community. I would just encourage all members of the council, if possible, to attend. The meeting will be attended by the 3 bank managers that have been invited from town. They will offer an economic outlook for the town of Centerville and the outlook for the local economy for the next year.
What day is that again?
It is Tuesday, July 27th at 6 o'clock p.m.
Okay, great.
And also the Heritage Trail of Centerville, Stepping Around Town, has been through final draft and is in production. So the town will be receiving 7,000 copies of this heavy stock 4-fold map as an invitation to both residents and visitors to visit historic sites and places of interest.
Great.
So I want to thank Paige Tillman for putting this together, and I want to thank Carolyn. I was sitting over here worrying that I knew I had received an email from Paige that I just remembered sitting here, and I thought, I don't know what that report said, and I looked at my packet, and Carolyn she had covered all the bases, so thank you very much.
Well, I was sitting here thinking, did I put that report in this package?
About to embarrass myself, but thank you for keeping that.
Where was that meeting at?
They don't know yet. They will be announcing soon.
TBD.
It could be at the Kennard African American Cultural Heritage Center. So
Great. Next, report of the department heads, town manager.
Have worked on the 3 public works agreements that you had on the agenda this evening. Been reviewing plans on some development projects. Working on the end of the year budget numbers with the finance officer and following up on several zoning matters. Would like to put a plug in for the police department. They have been assisting us with one of the zoning matters, and I think that's finally come to a completion. So.
Great. All right. Any questions? Anybody? No. Chief?
I have before you in your packets, you should have the May and June monthly overviews for the Centerville Police Department. If you've had a chance to look at those, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding those reports.
I don't have any questions. I do see that the parking citations have, I think we're kind of, we're getting a little bit more, right? I think with more parking coming downtown, people, somebody actually asked me the other day, are we supposed to feed the meters? And I said, absolutely. So, again, I want to, comment on the Family Fun Night, what a great event that was. And I thought it was fantastic to see that the line to get the police swag was almost as long as the line to get the funnel cakes. And
Yes. Somebody, I don't remember who it was, somebody said to me, why is there such a long line at the police department booth? I said, they've got swag over there that they are giving away.
So,
Chief, if I could, I have just a question. Do you know Is there anybody, do we know what the annual revenue is for these parking meters?
I happen to always keep that information with me for occasions just like this. So if the 5-year average was, the 5-year total was 105,000, which broke down over 5 years to average out to be about $21,000 a year. I can tell you that last year was obviously an atypical year based on limited travel. And
What does it cost? What do you estimate what it costs your team to patrol these things, to get the money out of them, get that to the bank? We've talked maybe in the past about how that money comes out of there wet or damp and the bank won't accept it that way. How many resources are you putting into replacing batteries?
So Lieutenant Meal was recently tasked with giving me some numbers to maintain the parking meter program, and the inner workings of the meters that we have out now are when they have to be replaced, it's can be between $600 and $800 to replace, because they don't make those guts, for lack of better words, anymore. So they're replaced with something that's a little bit more expensive than what it was. Maintenance-wise, as far as batteries, that usually comes in under $1,000 or so. The process of having the meters emptied is a bit antiquated, where obviously they're very heavy bags of coins that are hauled around by the officers, and we have to bring those coins back to the police department, and they sit in our evidence room for anywhere up to 1 or 2 weeks till the coins can dry. I understand at one point previously there was an officer that would bring a hairdryer in and actually hair dry the coins. We don't do that anymore. At that point, once the coins are dry, we take them up to the bank for the deposit. So that's kind of the abbreviated version of that process.
And for every major event, Drink Maryland, the holidays, we're bagging them. Is that right? To me, this is something I want to put on people's radar, maybe get some consensus tonight. I'd like to suggest that we have a pilot where these things are unreadable. And anybody that's been in town, they're unreadable. You can't tell how much time you got. You can't read the instructions. They're not making a ton of revenue. We take them off the books when we would make the most revenue. I think it would be a nod to our business community. Every time we sit in these seats, we hear about the downtown business community. We all know it's important. We all agree that it's important. I think we try for 6 months to put a bag on them and see what happens. If town is overrun with people sitting in parking spots all day, then we can revisit the decision. But I think, given the fact that we have raised taxes, I think it would be a good idea to consider at least a short-term policy to bag all of the meters in town, let people park and visit our businesses without having to pay to park, eliminate this confusion about whether you have to pay, and see what happens. I'm curious.
I think it's a great idea.
Folks?
Yes. So I will tell you, having sat on the council now, when you either don't enforce or you don't have to pay, the businesses are the ones that come to the council and say, we don't have the turnover because lawyers or whoever it is, right? People are coming and parking there the entire day. You're gonna find that, and I'm okay if we want to go through this experiment and figure it out. I'm a no on this, but I will tell you that inevitably you will start to find that every single employee and business owner and whatnot, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to be parking there, and they're going to be there all day long. When we had an issue, this was actually before I got on the council, over in the Happy Lady Lane lot, right? The one layer of parking that was next to Water Street did not have meters on it. Those businesses specifically came to the council and said, please put meters, because the businesses are parking there, the employees are parking there all day long, they're not turning over, and people are leaving. So
Then why doesn't that happen when we bag them for the holidays?
I think that it does. I think it does happen.
So then why do it then?
Because that incentive is that, hopefully the incentive is that people will come down and shop. And there's no mechanism for us to enforce the employees parking there. So it's a goodwill gesture, I think, that I don't think really helps out a lot. I mean, I don't think that we enforce it that much now, and I know specific employees that are parking in meter spots, and they're there all day long. So several years ago.
When you say employees, you mean employees of the town or employees of businesses?
Employees of businesses. Businesses. I can remember specifically the uproar that happened when we went from, I think it was 25 cents an hour to 50 cents an hour. And we went from $6 for a fine to $20 a fine. We actually had the state, or one of the reporters come out and interview us. The reason that we did that was because the business owners specifically were saying, employees are parking here, we're not enforcing it enough, and $6 is no incentive for them to leave. They'd rather get $6 tickets all day long, all week long, and it's not a big deal. Many of them, $20, it's not even a problem either. So I'm a no. I mean, if we want to try that experiment, I'm happy to do it, and let's see what happens over the next several months. I can just tell you that business owners are going to come back, and they're going to say, there's no turnover, it's a problem.
Say try it, but I would say for 3 months, about 6 months, and see if the business owners come in.
Yeah.
And let's try it. Have a hearing, encourage folks to come in and say how it's going, because, as you said, people are sitting there anyway. I think if to make the case that the parking meters are keeping people sort of rotating through there, but then also saying they're sitting there anyway, is a little inconsistent. I mean, they're sitting there anyway, right? So that's not, I just don't think that in many cases the meters are preventing people from doing that, because I think if you walk around town at dinner time, or you walk around town anytime, look at how many of those things in front of cars are flashing red.
Yeah.
People are not paying the meters anyway.
Well, and after 5, they don't have to.
Do the council members know that after 5 and on weekends?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, but okay, 4:30 or 4 o'clock, they're not paying them. And
Because typically there's not going to be, an officer coming by to enforce it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They're going to probably be there some other time during the day, in the morning or maybe early afternoon, but I don't know that they would consistently be making it part of the routine to show up at 4 o'clock an hour before.
So I guess I don't, to sit here, well, I mean, it bothers me some to take in a time of a shortage of officers, to say we're going to take an officer off the streets for any amount of time to enforce parking restrictions. Not to mention the fact that I think it's a negligible budgetary income, but we can talk about it further. We don't have to make a decision tonight.
I mean, I'm happy to do it. I think that I'm happy for you guys to make that decision today, right? I mean, if not, we're going to lose a whole nother month, right? I do believe that the way that we used to do the revenue was we had a parking meter enforcement person, and the revenue that was generated by those tickets kind of paid for that compensation. And the purpose wasn't so much that the town was making revenue, is that there was turnover, there was actual turnover on the meters. I think we've kind of fallen away from the ticketing and the citations, especially during COVID. So, you know,
You can't ticket somebody, I don't mean to interrupt you, you can't ticket somebody for a machine that doesn't work or a machine that's not readable. I mean, I know I have just started putting in money. You just put in money until you think, you see, I have no idea how much time I'm getting.
Yeah.
But I feel like
I've been
I
there.
put in, how long am I going to be here, right? Yeah.
I hope this is enough.
So my
Well, it doesn't pay
recommendation
to
is,
replace them.
you know, make a motion to bag the meters for 3 months and inform the business community and see what they have to say. I mean, go for it. I mean, I'm up for trying new things.
You're a no.
I'm a no, that's fine. I mean, I've just been here long enough to know that the business community is not in favor of that kind of stuff, and that, you know, if they come back and they say, hey, it's great, all right, I'll be happy to say I was wrong on that one, but I just feel that, I think bagging the meters is not the answer. I think that it's a good start in how are we going to solve this problem, right? If it's get some kind of an electronic thing or something else, but hey, this is a good experiment to try. Let's try it.
What do you think?
I moved to try it for 3 months.
All right, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to bag all of the parking meters that the town owns, even the ones for the solar, I assume, or for the,
I think if you're charging a car there, you have to.
all right, so all meters, with the exception of the charging stations, are going to be bagged for 3 months, 90 days, there you go.
Effective.
Get next Monday, who would do that? You guys
We
do
would.
that?
Why don't we say the 12th of
You want to just pick the end of
First of the-
September instead of saying, 3 months?
Yeah, we'll
Just pick
end
the
in
beginning
September.
or the
so can you make that motion again?
Sure, so it was her motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Shelby.
Can you make that motion again? I apologize.
So I make a motion to have the meters bagged for, are we
The end
saying
of September,
the end of September?
with the exception of,
With the exception of any of the rechargeable stations.
okay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to bag the meters through the end of September with the exception of the charging stations. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The motion carries. All right. Anything else? Chief, you got anything else?
Just a couple things I'll hit real quick. We currently have 2 vacancies with the police department. We are hoping to make a final offer of employment to a certified police officer with a start date later this month. We have a second certified officer who's applied, and we anticipate no disqualifying factors with their backgrounds. We're hoping to get them hired quickly too. We were able to purchase, this was back in, I think, February, a police kennel, an outdoor kennel under the State Homeland Security Program grant. That kennel was just delivered 2 weeks ago to the police department, so that when our K-9 unit has to get a vehicle service, or maybe he has a court date or court or other obligation where he's going to be indoors, he can actually leave the dog outside in the kennel. So it's kind of an indoor-outdoor kennel. The St. Michael's Police Department has also donated to us an in-car police kennel or cage for our second K-9 unit that we'll be looking at. So that's going to save us a little bit of money, so that now we don't have to purchase a second kennel for our police vehicles. We had our 2 community Meet the Police Days, and of course the Family Fun event and fireworks, which was really, really successful. We had a great opportunity to work with, and we're grateful to the Sheriff's Office, the deputies and the auxiliary deputies that came out to assist, and also the Department of Natural Resources Police, who also provided an officer to assist us. We had no incidents whatsoever, no complaints, and we're able to get everybody out of the event safely. So it was very well done. And then this year marks the 175th, I think it's September 10th of this year, marks the 175th anniversary of the Centerville Police Department. And we're working on an event that would commemorate this historical milestone later this year. That's all I have.
That's great. Are you going to be doing National Night Out, or will the September event kind of be the National Night Out?
Now, we've been invited to participate in a couple of events coming up, and as I get more details, I'll share them with council. One is the Go Purple that's coming up. There's a second event in, I think August, it slips my mind. And then there's National Night Out, which is in August, and we will be represented there as well.
If you are getting a dunking booth and you need a volunteer, I am happy to volunteer.
Sounds good.
I don't have anything else. Anybody?
Nope.
All right. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Town Attorney?
I have nothing.
Director of Public Works? Nothing? Town Clerk?
First, I want to thank Public Works and the Police Department on their help with our Family Fun event and fireworks. I thought it was a fantastic night. I was in awe at how many people came out Friday night. It was I think it's our largest crowd that we've ever had. So I was super excited about that, and everyone seemed to love it. The fireworks, I think, were great. I do understand there are some people who weren't extremely happy with the finale, which I kind of agree with. It was not as... I will remind everybody that we were 400 shells shy of what we normally have each year as well. So we typically have about 900 shells in our show. This year we had about 500 shells in our show. So that may have been the cause of maybe a little bit shorter, finale. But overall, I thought it was, a great event. Absolutely great event. Couldn't be done without the police department and Public Works.
I would add kudos. I mean, I know I always put it on the agenda starting in December, and it went out fantastic. The petting zoo was tremendous. I mean, that was really great, just to see all those different little animals.
That was Shelby's find.
Oh, that
there.
was so great.
Yeah.
That was so great.
Well, and I even said that, we decided this year not to do rides because it was still in the midst of the regulations of COVID. So we did the petting zoo as just I think even when we bring the rides back, I think we're still going to do the petting zoo. I think it was a big hit with everybody. Yeah,
I do
It was
too.
a big hit.
Food was great. It was fantastic, and I was just totally happy with the fireworks. I mean, anything we get is great. So thank you everybody so much.
I was actually a little nervous about how the fireworks were going to go because I knew how many fewer shells we had, and I was actually pleased with what we got. So.
I know that I was upset when they changed it last minute from Saturday to Friday. Understandable, right? I mean, I get it. And I just wonder if we had a greater amount because it was Friday and people weren't out of town yet, right? So I don't know what that experiment is, but it shows that we can do it on a Friday night.
Right.
And it's...
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought, well, maybe we should try it on a Friday night instead of a Saturday so we've done Saturday and Sunday. We have done a midweek, I think, before when we got rained out.
Okay.
Consistent with the parade, Friday nights.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, the parade. Yeah, that'll be our next event.
I attended the ones at the Narrows. And I can tell you that we probably had more people in Centerville than the Narrows had.
Really?
Yes, I
Wow.
was there, I worked. And I believe there was more people in Centerville than there were at the Narrows.
Wow.
And you did an expert job planning all of this.
Yeah.
Thanks to
Yes.
the entire town, but you also you put a lot of effort into this. and
Thank you.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
And it was amazing, the turnout.
Yeah.
Pulling up, I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen so many people.
And
here.
I usually am, on the weekends, I usually come in about 3:30 because the vendors and when we had the rides, they would come in
Right.
early and start setting just to make sure everybody was where they were supposed to be. So I got out there about 4:30, and 3 of the vendors were already there, which surprised me. And then about 5:15, people started showing up and were going to the vendors for food. I was like, oh my gosh, So it really was a good night.
Yeah. Kudos.
It turned out.
I even thought, it might be just a perception, but we all felt that it was a larger crowd. But I felt like the getting the people out of town didn't take any longer than it normally does. So
No.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
So I thought,
Yeah, the exit was very smooth.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if the announcement that the police department did put out,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
if you
with the
park
mask
here,
and
this is how you're going to get out. And I'm not sure if that may have helped, you know, because I don't think that the parking lot at the high school was as full. It's normally completely full, and it was not.
Right.
So I'm wondering if people were, all right, I'm parking on the Acme side, I'm parking, you know.
Yeah,
So-
the
All coming together.
The communication was really
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, yeah, it was great.
And the communication when the date changed. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
everyone found out about it. I think
I know.
it was great.
Yeah, that was a little stressful.
Yeah.
And
And the weather worked out.
and the weather worked out. It was a beautiful night weather-wise. And I'm thankful of all our vendors who were very flexible with,
Oh, yeah.
you know, changing from Saturday to Friday. And then if we have a rain date, is everyone available on Monday? Because that was our rain date. And everyone was, whichever date you need us, we'll be there. So it was great.
Cool.
The very last thing I have is we had our facade improvement grant application due today. It was to go in today at 3 o'clock. At about 11:30, there was a glitch in the system. And it was not just me, it was apparently other people. So they have pushed back the submission date to Tuesday at 3. So we only have one page to add one attachment and sign, and we can send it off. Everything else is done, but Tuesday it goes in, so we'll start another round of facade improvement grants.
That's great.
Awesome.
All right, thank you. Next, we're going to go to Citizens Forum. We have a second Citizens Forum. If there's anybody here that's interested, please come forward, and you've got 3 minutes. Hearing none, we're going to move to Council Roundtable. Anania?
So I just wanted to thank everyone once again, though we just did it, for all of their efforts for the fireworks. I think it was just an amazing event. So
All
thank
right.
you.
Keel?
I'm going to second Shelby's, the fireworks and all the hard work that went into it to have a good show. And I see some improvement on the Wharton property. All the tires are going. They're working on it.
Oh, that's great.
Believe me, I hear about this thing every day from somebody I live with. Yes, she said, can't they clean that place up? So I said, look, they're starting. I said, so.
leave me alone.
That's what I said. That's all I said. So, yes. And some of the other properties around town are being cleaned up too, so
All right,
I appreciate Steve's help with those things.
great. Anything else?
That's it.
Mr. Klein?
I will add I like to say there are 3 things that don't belong at fireworks displays: babies, dogs, and me. But I came because I have kids. I came, they wanted to come, and it was a fantastic event. Thanks to everybody that was involved. Thanks especially to Council Member Anania for her leadership, and Carolyn, and everybody else that was involved. It was a great event, despite my bias against them generally. But thank you all for doing it. I know it's these things that are good for the town, good for the small town feel of this town, and I know that there's not been very much of that in this country generally for a long time, 18 months, and so it felt as close to normal as it's been for a long time, and I think there's something to be said about that, and I just appreciate the effort.
Great.
maybe the committee can come up with some kind of fishing activity to include.
Yeah, fly fishing, like a fly fishing.
As long as it's not that crowded.
All right, so I just have a couple of things. I did mention earlier the YMCA groundbreaking. You know, this is Robbie Gill, who's the CEO of the YMCA, did a great opening. And I mean, this is 15 plus years coming. And it's really great to know that as kids start to go, kids will be able to start to go right from the middle school right over there to the high school and be able to go there. We're going to have an indoor pool. I mean, it's really going to be great. It's just amazing to think that here, you know, for so long we haven't had an indoor pool for the public. I did attend MML as well, and one of the most interesting meetings that I went to, and I know, Jeff, you went to it as well at a different time perhaps, it was talking about how to get grant funding, and they were talking about possibly getting into the governor's budget, utilizing your legislature to help sponsor these things. And my question to them was, we've got so many things we need, right? We need a water tower, we need a water infrastructure, I mean, everything. And I was like, how do we prioritize? And what their recommendation was is put it all in. So I've already spoken with several of our local legislators, whether it was at the YMCA or whether it was actually down at MML. And, I think what we need to do is kind of come together and figure out what are the priorities. We're so far along on many of these already, and we can, help ask them to help us get it into the governor's budget for some grants. So there's some good opportunities there. And again, I wish Bob Hardy well in his retirement.
If I could just make an addendum to your comments there. The federal government, the Congress is debating a major investment in the Clean Water State Revolving Fund to the tune of $50 billion over 5 years. And I think we certainly need to be in the mix as we think about that, and it could certainly be a very helpful thing to have. So I'll keep, it's something I'm working on during my day job, so I'm happy to keep folks involved or up to date in terms of that bill coming together. But it passed the Senate 89-2, so it's not, unlike most everything else, not super partisan.
Great. All right, I will accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.